Adam is back with me today to talk about a big Pacers victory over a healthy team, the New York Knicks. They smash a good team at home thanks to a big fourth quarter and a huge Myles Turner performance. Lots to talk about from that game. Plus, Adam took a vacation right at the beginning of the season, so we can just open his brain on what he's thought of the Pacers so far this season. Lots to talk about on today's Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers as always. My name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and the West Side Community News. And today we are talking about a team on a 2-game winning streak, which is such a minor feat, but for a team that started 1-6 is a pretty major accomplishment. Pacers, big win over the Knicks at home tonight. Myles Turner was tremendous. And then finally, he's back from vacation, everybody. My lovely co-host, Mr. Adam Friedman, is here. He's soaked up the team for 10 days since I last talked to him, more than that, 12 days. And I can pick his brain about the stuff he's seen about the Indiana Pacers so far this season. Adam, welcome back.
Glad to be back. And just like the Pacers, who actually have I would say their full roster. I mean, obviously Warren isn't back, but like the team we thought they would have once we understood Warren's injury length, like it's finally came together today for their win, and it's actually a decent team. So maybe it's like a real sign the team will turn a corner finally.
In November is a new month. That's what I said after the Spurs game when they won a third quarter. November is a new month. And now they have not lost in this month yet. They got 4 starters playing together for the first time since April of 2021. And now that you're on the show, all is right in Pacerland. So yes, there's a lot to get to from this game, including the first time Brogdon and LeVert have played together in forever and Myles Turner being awesome. But we got to talk about the game first. What happened? The Pacers win 111-98. They were awesome in the fourth quarter. Some huge plays from a ton of people. And, we'll get to the star players in this game, but everybody really did something good in this game, right? Torrey Craig came in and gave some huge minutes defending Julius Randle, and they were fouling him like crazy. The Pacers had 22 fouls. They were making sure Julius Randle did not get going, and he did not. Torrey Craig was a big part of that. Malcolm Brogdon, 17 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists, was excellent. Chris Duarte, 10 points, 5 rebounds, was pretty good. Myles Turner, 25, 13, and 3 blocks, was excellent. Sabonis didn't even get that much going and still had 10, 7, and 3. Caris LeVert had 21 and 5 assists. Like, everybody was good, and normally that's not something you won a game. Like, everybody was good, but it's the first time we've seen, like you said, their healthy rotation sans Warren this season. So to see everybody kind of play their role, play well, and guide to a victory against a good team was very refreshing for a team that was struggling early in the season.
Yeah, you're finally starting to see like kind of I call it 3-headed monster of LeVert, Duarte, and Brogdon. Now Duarte didn't have he's had better games this year and had some really high scoring marks, but you kind of saw what those three can kind of do together, and then you add in the fact that one of the centers played really well, not the one usually that plays well offensively, but I mean, except for this, I guess this season it's been an anomaly, but you know what I mean, in the normal trend. But yeah, you sort of saw what's it like when the 3 guard-ish players play well, and you get a really good performance from a center, and that it's a recipe to score 111 points and hold the team under 100.
Yeah, all those guys played very well and played their role effectively. And then even, McConnell had 6 assists in 17 minutes. He wasn't like awesome, but that's the role that would be expected for him with both LeVert and Brogdon back. And I don't know where Jeremy Lamb fits in this equation, right? Keelan Martin played back up to a little bit. He only played 5 minutes. It was mostly just the 3 starting guards swarming there. So maybe this isn't quite the fully healthy rotation. We'll see what happens with him. He's had some struggles to start the year, but the only guy who had like a wonky performance was Justin Holiday, and he had 7 open threes. Like, I think maybe 1 contested one at the end of the shot clock in the third quarter, I remember now. But he took 7 shots this game. They were all threes, and they were all open. Like, it's very plausible that he goes 3 for 7, and suddenly they win this game by 20-something and look even better, right? They did a good job with all these guys there. They didn't even 26 assists is good, They had 37 against the Spurs. If you want a reference of what awesome is, 26 assists is good. And I think we just saw that with all these guys, they did a good, like LeVert shot 18 times. He was excellent in the second half, especially on offense, but they did a really good job of sharing it. And the Carlisle system with a lot of interchangeability, and guys can do different roles, or different lineups in, but we're still going to be able to run the same stuff. Like it really shines when they have everybody clicking on the same page in a game like this.
Yeah, and 0 for 7 actually isn't. I mean, that happens getting Justin Holiday. Like there are games he has a couple of these games a year where you just like can't find anything basically. So
The
that's
fair
actually
balance
not.
after the last game, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it just happens to him. It's not that big of a deal, to be honest. I think the thing that was really nice to see tonight was just LeVert and Brogdon's combination. I mean, we've like kind of missed it. I mean, obviously missed LeVert the first 6 games, 5 games. I lost track. Been gone for a little bit. Lost track of how many games he actually missed, and then you add in Brogdon missing the last few. And like that last year was probably their best combination when those guys were healthy together. Anyways, you had that, and then usually with Sabonis, those three were really, really good together. So that's the one thing that sort of I think gives you a lot of hope going forward, because you're like, oh, those guys together back. You got maybe a better, Duarte is probably the best kind of 3 option outside of Warren they have. So that's an improvement from last year. McDermott basically was playing in that spot. Turner looks better this year, I think, compared to last year. So you're starting to feel like, oh, this team maybe is building its momentum up a little bit.
This is a little of a vague way to do this. I don't have time to run through every lineup the Pacers played tonight to get an exact plus minus. But the starting 5, which featured both Brogdon and LeVert, and played together for over 16 minutes, so over a third of the game, was plus 16, right? So we saw those two fitting together in the moments that they'll be playing most often with that 5. And it's only one game. I don't want to overanalyze anything. I did an entire segment on that duo yesterday. But having them back together and then immediately click, boom, we hit the ground, we're going. And I know they played 500 something minutes together last year. It's not like they're strangers as teammates, but they to see them hit the ground running was very encouraging. And we could talk more about them next segment, because that's probably the second biggest story from this game to me. But yeah, not only did they do it, this win is important to me for this team, because look, the Heat win looks really impressive in retrospect, because the Heat are kicking butt this season. I think they only have 2 losses. They might be first in the East now with this Knicks loss, but Lowry didn't play. Then they beat the Spurs, they're rebuilding. They stink. This was their first win against a good team that had everybody, right? The Knicks did not have any key guys injured. In fact, Nerlens Noel played his first game of the season tonight, right? And they completely shut down Kemba. He was 2 for 11. LeVert played awesome defense on Kemba Walker in this game at times. It was I tweeted this during the game. I think it was the best LeVert defensive game of the season. Randall was out of his game. He was 6 for 16 for 18 points. He had a lot of rebounds, but he was out of his game. RJ Barrett was all right. He had 23 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, but still had a lot of struggle scoring, and Myles Turner thwarted him at the basket very often. Like, the Pacers just kicked a good team's butt, and it was their most encouraging win of the season to me for that reason, because we've seen them be close in every game except for that one Raptors game, and we've seen them be right there against these teams that are missing guys. But to see them not be missing guys and then kick butt against a good team was finally like, okay, Carlisle's got them onto something now.
Yeah, I mean, I think the recipe to win is it's pretty obvious. If they actually can play defense, they can win games. I mean, that's basically been the reason they've won. Let's see, they beat the Heat. They held the Heat to 91 points. San Antonio put 118, but that was a blowout game. So, there's a lot of extra added on points there, basically. But when they actually play good defense, they manage to win games, and that usually ends up being their recipe when they finally turn it around most seasons. Is they start off bad because they can't play defense, whatever. They may be going too fast, or who knows what. The new offense is clunky, so they don't play as good as defense. Then they finally settle it to a defensive scheme. Then they can rip off some games. I'm worried to go on a West Coast swing that maybe will kind of kill some of this momentum going forward. But usually that's the recipe for this team, like each and every year, because they're ultimately going to have to win on the defensive end, because Turner is one of the best defensive players in the league and an anchor, and that's sort of like what you invested in. And then you got some players around him who can be good defenders, like Brogdon. Warren showed it when he comes back and stuff like that. So it's not that surprising, I guess, when you look at it, they actually played some defense.
Yeah, they have only lost once, giving up less than 105, which was that Raptors game over the weekend when LeVert returned. And I mean, there's kind of 2 ways to look at that game. One, if they make a buzzer 3, they're in overtime, they've got a shot to win it. 2, if LeVert played the whole game, played the first half, they probably win, right? So in games where their defense is up to snuff, they've been good, right? They've been good. It's just that early in the season, they gave up 120 something to Charlotte,
No, they
130
look like
something
the
to
New York
Washington.
Pacers those first couple games where they were just
Yeah,
giving
yeah,
up every
120 to
bucket
Milwaukee.
everywhere.
The Nets game, they played okay defense, but that game was all out of whack.
Yeah, with the Nets, you have to give up so much defensively that it's going to drag you offensively because they're just
Yeah,
so good. That kind of
that's
makes
an
sense.
anomaly-ish.
Yeah.
So I mean, the defense is really key for them, and it was fantastic in the fourth quarter, especially. Like, it's weird that I opened the box score and I saw the Knicks scored 23 in the fourth, and I was at this game, like I saw the whole thing. I thought that was high. Like, I thought it was going to be a much lower number than that because maybe it was just the timing of the stops, but it felt like the Pacers got a lot of very key stops in this game that led that defense.
Yeah, the Knicks added on a few in the last 3 minutes when the Pacers kind of pulled away.
That too.
Because really, at about 8 minutes, they were maybe up 4 or 5. I want to say somewhere in the 8 to 10 minute range, and it felt like, oh, here we're heading for like a back and forth game. And then all of a sudden, they kind of got, I'd say 3 or 4 stops in a row, hit 3 or 4 shots in a row, and all of a sudden they were up by I think 11 to something like that at one point, if not more. Obviously they won by 13, but I think they got up to 15 points at one point. So they sort of pulled away to a point in the fourth quarter where the Knicks just clawed back some points because they were up by enough.
They went from up 4, 91-95 at 6:48 to go, to up 11 with 5:13 to go. So that a minute and a half basically where they just throttled the Knicks. So I guess you're right where that stretch feels so key. It feels like their defense maybe was a little better.
Huge. I mean, we never see that. I mean, not we never see that, but it's rare. Rare to see that in the fourth quarter from this team.
Yes, exceedingly rare, right? So defense, and even from that point on, it's not like it's over. The Knicks got it to 8 with 5 minutes to go, and then the Pacers only gave up 7 more points the rest of the game, right? So, yeah, good defense seems to be guiding them, and Carlisle was really putting a lot of emphasis on defense in the preseason and in training camp and stuff like that. He always talks about how sometimes shot making can be a little fluky on a game-to-game basis for your own guys on offense, but defense you can control, rebounding effort you can control. So he really wanted to focus on that, and we're seeing that pay off now that they have more guys back and they've worked a new scheme more together, and their anchor is having a dominant and confident game. We've gone too long. We've got to talk about Myles Turner. Yes. But first, we got to talk about the good people over at rockauto.com, because with the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models of cars, it's impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. I told you guys this a few weeks ago, but I saw an ad for a 2023 model of a vehicle. It's 2021. How are they already coming out? There's no way your chain store is going to have all these parts, and then they got to order them because they're not going to have them. That car just came out. That's a pain. Instead, you can go to rockauto.com and save time and money. Why would you choose to spend 30, 50, even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store when you can get them for cheaper and for quicker? At rockauto.com, they're a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 2 decades. Their prices are always reliably low, and they have everything you could need for your car or truck. Go explore their easy-to-use website today to find the solution to your auto parts needs. Go to rockauto.com right now. See all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box, so they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need at rockauto.com. And we're also got to tell you about BetOnline.ag, because they are back and better than ever. Basketball season in full swing. They've got a new web interface, more props, more odds, more lines than ever before. BetOnline remains the number one spot for all the basketball and football action this season. Head over to that new updated desktop mobile interface. Sign up today with our promo code Locked On. You'll receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. That code is Locked On. They've got basketball, football, baseball postseason just ended, but they've got futures up, NHL, boxing, UFC, your favorite Vegas casino games. It's all there. Don't wait to take advantage of their amazing offers. They're the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. Bet online, where the game starts. Thank you for making Locked On Pacers your first listen today. I hope you continue to do that every day. We've made it somehow over 10 minutes into the show and have not talked about Myles Turner. And I wanted to recap the game before I did so that was kind of intentional, but I mean, it's time. Myles Turner, second to his 40-point game against Washington, one of the best games of his career tonight. I mean, in the top 5, certainly. You could argue even higher than that, top 3, top 2, whatever. Unbelievably good in this game. And the stats are not going to do it justice. 25 points, 13 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, 3 blocks, 7 threes, a career high. Was dominant. Okay, here's why the stats sell him short. Dominant at the start of the game. Had 8 points in the first 90-something seconds. Like, the Pacers were up 11-0 before the Knicks even blinked. Like, they won by 13. That stretch mattered a ton. And him being a huge part of that on both ends was a big part of why the Pacers won this game. That lead carried them the rest of the way, basically. The Knicks barely ever, I don't know if they ever got the lead back. And then in the fourth quarter, he comes in, and it might have been like a 2-point game at that point or a 3-point game. And Turner checks in, and the Knicks hit a free throw right after he checks in. And then on the other end, he dunks. Sabonis gets an offensive rebound, gets it to Turner, he dunks. And then he blocks RJ Barrett's layup. And then he hits a three. And then the Pacers call a timeout. And then he disrupts RJ Barrett's layup. And then he's a part of another basket. And all of a sudden, the Pacers go, that's the stretch Adam was just talking about. They go from up a little, and you start to think the game is slipping away because the Knicks have been chipping at it since his early stretch, to they're up big again, and you think they're going to win. It was not only were his plays, his stats great, and he had a career night shooting, he made so many timely plays that shut down the Knicks. It was just such an impactful game from him, and it was really wonderful to see him assert himself and put a stamp on the game.
Yeah, it's the perfect game for him. I mean, the team was basically playing two centers next to him, so he could sort of like operate in that way, and we're going to get killed on certain ways and certain matchups. That helped that way, and it's the kind of game he needed to dominate, right? I mean, I think the thing about Turner is there's games they go into, like if he can dominate, or he can be dominant defensively, not even offensively, just defensively, the team has a shot, and sometimes he'll come up short, but tonight against a guy like Randall, who was second team All NBA last year, third team, right? He was right. He was one. He was in second team, right? So I mean, and that might be a little much for Randall, in his career arc, but still, he basically went up against a second team NBA player last year and was better than him. And, that's the kind of defensive performance you need from him to win games this year. I mean, I think you probably talked about it last week, but that Greg Doyle article that was kind of like trade Turner, whatever it said. I mean, it was very kind of all over the place. I think that the thing about Turner is we've always known his limitations, but defensively, when he is this good, this team has a whole other ceiling than what it has if they don't have him, frankly.
Yeah, definitely agree that the ceiling raiser is there, especially when, you talked about this last segment too, like our defense is clicking is when they're the best. And he is the anchor for this team's defense. He has been for years and years and years. And, he has his limitations. There's a reason Greg writes an article like that. But when he's like this, I mean, it's so hard to beat the Pacers because he's going to be awesome on defense. The Pacers were plus 14 with him in the game in a 13-point win. Like that kind of perfectly underscores how good he was. But when he provides this offense, that's kind of, I don't want to focus just on his offense because his defense was so good, but when he provides 7 threes, and he took in this game, it looks like all but one shot was either right at the rim or from three. And just given how Myles Turner has played in the past, right, the fact that all the rest of his non-threes came at the rim because he was in the right place on putbacks, because he was cutting, because he was shot faking and driving, that shows you what he can do offensively when he's in the right spots or when he's having the right level of aggression and seeing the game in the perfect way. And he did that perfectly in this game. And that's when he's really awesome, because then he's adding to that already elite defensive impact. And he did it. I mean, he did so much just perfect, especially in key moments in this game that made it just such a dominant performance. I mean, I can't say enough nice things about how he played. And when you get that on offense from him, it's really hard for the Pacers to fail because he's kind of the swing point on offense for them sometimes. LeVert's going to be able to get up his looks. We've seen what Brogdon can do for years and years. Sabonis is going to shoot 50 to 60%, even when he's taken out of the game, and create shots for his teammates. Can Turner finish plays and really make that lineup click? And he did in this game. He was tremendous in that way.
So I'm having a hard time sort of like remembering and sort of trying to pull in, but like, how often does he have kind of two good games in like a week span, or two really good offense? Like, I mean, this is two really good offensive games in a week span. Like, do we think this is sort of like not an indication of like maybe he can be a little more consistent offensively this year? Because I think that's always been his kind of downfall most years, is that like you feel like he does enough defensively, but he just like you just wanting a little more offensively, just a little bit more every time out of him. Do you think he can do more this year?
It's hard to say. Right? Obviously, we've been saying that exact thing for Turner forever. A non-answer for me. You look at the 40-point game and you go, yes, of course. He scored 40 points in a game. Of course he has the opportunity to be excellent in any moment. And against the Spurs Monday, the other game he's referring to with 2 good offensive games in a week, was kind of the opposite of the game he just played, where he only hit 1 3 and was struggling from deep, but made all 6 of his 2-point shots, got to the free throw line for 5 attempts, right? Still had his dominant defensive impact. And that's kind of why I think 2 things. One, I think, yes, he's becoming better at balancing. And we heard Rick before the season. First of all, no lobs for Turner yet. So the lob threat thing is not coming true yet.
Well, he's never
But,
been that kind of player, I don't think. I mean, he's never
I
had
think
that
he
great
can be
feel.
with his athleticism, but I don't think he ever will be.
To me, he's never had that kind of like really great feel around the hoop. Like I think, right?
Yeah.
Like
Well,
Sabonis has like,
his hands stink.
yeah, like Sabonis can turn around off his left foot, fade back, and hit the jumpers. Not all the time, but sometimes. Where Turner has to kind of be face up and going towards the rim, and he just needs to look. Doesn't have Clint Capella level lob ability.
Right. Yeah, so that's encouraging to me. Not the lob thing, but what I was going to say is, my light just went off. Is that we heard Carlisle also say that something else he wants from Turner is to roll more in general, right? To not just be only popping. And we've seen Turner not necessarily roll a ton, but he's involved in some 2-screen sets, and he's got more freedom, like with Bjorkgren, to move inside the arc, and this more spread out style suits his play more than Bjorkgren's did last year, where it was a lot more of the Sabonis handoff stuff and from the elbows, and that's not bad. It worked. Like Bjorkgren's offense was good, it was above average, but this suits Turner better. So it's certainly possible that it's not like Carlisle said after the game, like it's not really on me, like as the coach. Like, yeah, I'm gonna enable this guy. I'm gonna try to enable all my players, but sometimes it's on Myles to just like do good, like do that performance all the time. And seeing it twice in a week, you're right, is not something that's happened for him a ton in his career, and this season especially, right? He had only scored more than 10 once before this week, and that was the 40-point game. So I don't. That's why I'm hesitant to say, maybe he can be awesome all the time, because again, he scored 40, and outside of that, it was 9, 4, 5, 10, 9, 10 before this week. So I don't know, but we are seeing that with LeVert back, which is a factor here, and just in general, him growing into the system, that he is able to, under his own decision making, be more impactful on offense. So it's possible still. I just don't know, because we've seen a lot of stinkers as well.
Yeah, he just has to be a threat. I mean, I think that's the issue. The fear is always in the playoffs that and they did this in the Heat series 2 years ago. They just laid off him basically on the offensive end, and he actually was kind of a threat, but he wasn't really enough of a threat that they really had to respect him. And like that's what he has to be. Like he has to have enough of these good games where teams have to put a guy on him and also can't stick their smallest guy, hide him on them, right? Because like it's got to be the threat where like if you stick the point guard like Kemba Walker, right? Like I think the Celtics would do that a lot to other team centers, especially when Kemba was hurt last year. Well, you have to be able to threat where they can't just stick Kemba on Turner in the corner and get away with that for a game,
right?
Where he can just beat him off the dribble a few times, give him a foul trouble or whatever. So I don't know. I mean, we'll see if he can put it together, but I mean, it's good to see him do it twice in a week. Let's see if he can do it 3 times in 2 weeks. Let's see if he can do it 5 times in 3 weeks. And if it adds up, eventually he'll become enough of a threat where like stuff can happen.
Beyond anything specifically tactical, I think the biggest point of maybe encouragement to me for him to be more consistent and have more games like this where you just want us the Pacers the game. If you're Carlisle, is like he's got the new shot fake, put it on the floor move, and it's so simple, but guys really even though you're right, he gets a lot of space. That kind of means guys have to rush more to get out to him. They have to cover more ground. So the fact that he's got the up fake and drive move has helped evolve a lot of stuff for him offensively. That's where I think he's been a little more dynamic in years past. Bjorkgren enabled him to drive more, and some of it wasn't that way. But Carlisle's got him set up to utilize that skill perfectly. So especially in games like the Spurs game, where the 3 isn't falling, he can do that and really take over offensively.
And you need him out there defensively. I mean, he is so good defensively that he has to be enough on offense to keep him out there defensively, because every game they lose is because he doesn't play 4 quarters basically so far.
Yeah, that's got to be a segment for us coming up kind of soon. And frankly, it hasn't happened in enough games recently that I think that narrative could end up dying of him not playing in the 4th, but it's possible it resurfaces.
Give it 25 games and we can start looking at it.
Yeah. It was certainly something strange early in the season that he was not getting like spot minutes in the 4th, like none, 0. So that was odd. He's been playing a lot more in the 4th recently. The other thing I wanted to hammer out in this segment, we talked about it in the first one, but just Brogdon and LeVert back together, right? And I think they just this is kind of what Carlisle's talked about a lot, and Bjorkgren used this term, or an adjacent term, I guess, of just paint touches, right? They like guys who can get in the paint, but the difference now is, we've seen this struggle with them in the past, and I've talked about this on past podcasts. McConnell can get in the lane and pass, and Lamb can get in the lane and shoot. But those guys can't do the other thing, right? Brogdon and LeVert can both get into the paint, and they can do both. They are a threat to score or pass. And having two guys that can do that is more than twice as valuable than having just one. Like it's a I can't remember the math term. This is embarrassing.
Economies of scale.
Yes, I don't know. I could have said anything.
Multiplier.
I would have been like genius. Yeah, exponential. There we go.
Exponential, yes.
It's exponential growth. When you have that kind of threat, it just makes it so much harder to sag off of guys. It makes it hard. Like you get caught in no man's land more because you have to make a tougher decision. Like, is he going to shoot? Is he going to pass? So seeing them together, it just adds so much. And then it gets those guys who are more limited creators who are still good. They have to play less and they have less burden. Their roles are more defined. McConnell was good in this game with the second unit, like I said. So just having them together gives this team so much more. And there's a reason they really struggled down the stretch last year with just LeVert, and then in the plans with just Brogdon, in the early this season with just Brogdon or neither. Like having both, I think we'll see on this road trip. It's only been one game, but I think it will unlock so much for them. And we saw it a little bit in this game, but just the starting five was great. I think it's going to be huge for this team.
Yeah, and it helps that they actually are surrounded by three other players who are starter level. I think last year they put together with a lot of not scrubs, not the right way, but a lot of guys who really should have been in bench roles for a lot of minutes. And this year they're actually surrounded by guys who I think are up to their level when it comes to starting the lineup, and that just makes things easier for them. Right? They're around two players who I consider real offensive threats, and then Turner, when he's like this tonight, makes it three other ones. Just like
the exponential thing even stacks up further when Duarte is a threat too, right? Like they have to pay a lot of attention to him because he's not going to be afraid to pull up in your face, right? So if you give him space, he's got so many options he can do in terms of shooting the pull up or putting it on the floor and doing something dangerous.
And I think he's a real offensive threat. I mean, I want to talk about him more a little bit, but yeah, I mean, he's a real offensive threat. He maybe not be like super efficient yet, like 3-point wise he is, but he's a guy who could score, and you have to at least like guard him. Like you can't just let him sit there and take shots.
Was this his lowest scoring game of the season at 10?
I don't know. I lost track.
It was. This Knicks game was his lowest scoring game of the season at 10 points. And he still felt like he had a good offensive impact.
We're 8 games in now, right? After 5, I stopped being able to remember. 9, see exactly. After about 5 games, I stopped remembering like exactly each game. And usually it's like certain memories from each game then.
What a pivot from our usual rookie analysis that Chris Duarte's worst game is 10 points, and we're like, he didn't do much tonight.
Actually, I feel like he's had a worse game. I mean, this actually was probably.
Oh yeah, he was good.
Yeah, I mean, he was not high volume, but he was more. I guess he was more efficient than was like in the Miami game where I felt like
his worst game easily in Toronto to me, easily.
14
definitely. Points on 15 shots, easily.
Yes, I think. I mean, the Miami one wasn't great either, but he was kind of had to do that because there wasn't a lot of options.
Well, and he was clutches is all hell in that game.
Helps. That helps.
You kind of redeem yourself when you hit the biggest shot.
True. It's like Vic would go 4 of 24, but he hit both threes and end the game and win it, so it didn't matter.
Well, we talked Duarte and a little about the past, but Adam was gone for a week, and I didn't get to pick his brain. So this could go any direction. We're gonna let Adam decide what we're talking about because I don't know what he thought about the Pacers' first 8 games. He was in Ohio and Arizona, and he wasn't scouting opponents, no Suns anything, no Cavs anything. So let's pick Adam's brain on the Pacers. But this episode of Locked On Pacers is brought to you by McDonald's, who've been proudly serving communities since 1965. McDonald's has always been more than a place to just get tasty, affordable food. It's a place where friends and family can reconnect, a place where classmates can meet up to study, knowing they'll have dependable Wi-Fi and an endless supply of French fries and McFlurries. Win or lose, it's a place where teammates, competitors, the home team, the away team can come to recharge, and it's the place you always look forward to stopping on a long road trip to rest your legs and refuel. So I always would go with my mom as a kid. I always had positive memories of going there. I'd go after Little League games with my dad sometimes, especially if I played good. He was much better at baseball than me. So it's just a great place in your community to go. Go to McDonald's, refuel, reconnect. Maybe we'll have a Locked On Pacers watch party there one day. McDonald's, ba-da-ba-ba-ba. I'm loving it. All right. Like I said, Adam, this segment is all you. You get to lead. 8 days, 8 games. We didn't get to talk. Tell me something you've been thinking about with this Pacers team so far this season. Anything.
Okay. The very first thing is they started 1-6, right? I have that correct? Yep. Okay. Yes. Everybody needs to calm down about like how bad those first 7 games were. I mean, that's what I would have said. Like, so almost every NBA podcast I listen to and we do this sometimes. We did it for the first game. We wildly overreact to the first game. It's kind of a gag in some ways. But like there are people legitimately like way too overreacting the first 8-9 games of the season so far. And it's like, calm down. You need like 25 games before you can make any judgment about any player or team that's like really definitive. Sure, you can get some broad strokes. This guy looks good. This guy looks bad. This guy looks in shape. This guy doesn't. But like they lost 5 games by like one possession over a week, or like they were in the
one bucket and they win some of the last.
Yeah, I mean, like Sabonis drops makes a shot here or there in that first game. The Wizards game goes the other way. All of a sudden, this team is like 5-4, and we're like, okay, they're fine. I mean, that's what we thought. That's probably better than we thought they would be in the first 9 games. To be honest, I told you off the air, 0-9 was a real possibility, and they're 3-6. So like, I think people needed to like calm down big time. Like it wasn't that big of a deal. Every year they actually have bad starts. It feels like they usually ride it out. Last year was like one of the exceptions because of a lot of injuries.
You know how many wins I predicted they'd have to this point, Adam?
3,
4.
4. Okay, you're one
right?
off.
Like,
I had 5 probably, right?
Yeah, you had 5, right? Like
okay.
And we talked. They had 2 insanely close losses, and they were within 5 of every team except for in Toronto that they played with less than 5 minutes to go in the game. Like they're so close to being much better, and now they've won 2 in a row. I agree, and we kind of talked about that.
They were legit good against Milwaukee, who's a good team. I mean, they've been sort of injuries this year and stuff like that, but they're like the NBA champion team, and they played them pretty tougher than I thought they played them all last year, basically.
So I don't know if you listened to Derek Kramer and I on Monday, iPacers blog, Adam, but we talked about a couple things. One, they started very badly in the 2012-13 season, made the conference finals. They started very badly in the 1997-98 season, Carlisle's first season as an assistant. Guess what they did that year, Adam?
They made the conference finals.
They made the conference finals. Now, we both also said they're not going to make the conference finals this year, but slow starts have been overcome by the Pacers before. And 2, to your point about making grandiose and huge conclusions from the start of the season, remember how good they were at the start of last year?
Yeah.
Like they were like second in the East after a month.
They had 2.
Like, wow, this team
they had 2 close wins, right? Start of the year, yeah. 2 really good close wins.
Exactly. So yeah, they had the Sabonis game winner against Boston, right, early last year, right? Like you just can't read into the games and the results too much early in the season, especially when they're not that far off of how good they should be right now. They're actually tough stretches coming up, right? Like they have this 4-game road trip and then Philly and then New York again. So, getting these wins now is really important. Of course, they'd like to be better than 3-6, but I agree with you that there have been some overreactions.
Shocker, I know. Overreaction the first week
stunning
of any sports season. Overreaction the first week.
Okay, I will say one thing. 1-6 just looks really bad. You know what I mean?
It was bad, but it was like usually 20 games, and you can start to like make some real judgments. 25.
Yeah. And even then their schedule's so hard that
but at least like 25 games in, you kind of have a feel for if the guys have played most of the games and stuff like that. Okay, you ready for me to sort of like kind of now go against what I just said?
Oh boy, sure.
No, I'm not. But Duarte, I mean, man, this guy is like a legit NBA player, probably a starter in this league, borderline if not 6-man. Like he's looked really good in the first 9 games. Like every expectation, every Pacer scout, the Pritchard who said, "Oh, this guy's ready to play day one." We all thought, is he? Is it hyping up or not? They were all right. I mean, this guy is like a legit 3-point shooter. He certainly has got things to work on, but man, he's like a really, really good NBA player. And it's like refreshing to finally see like a draft pick really hit this early on.
My all rookies are bad campaign to prep people for.
He's 24 years old. He's not really like a traditional NBA rookie. He is literally a developed player. He's not just like 19-year-old.
Old rookies aren't always good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I mean, size-wise, he's developed. Right, he's not just like.
I get that he's exceptionally old, but still, like Obi Toppin was 22 for the Knicks last year, did not give them like anything, and he's pretty developed. Like I get the difference, but still, like that's not the only thing going on here. Like he's obviously also awesome at playing basketball. So
he has a clutch gene to him. Clearly, something about that end of quarters, everything he's hitting those threes. Did one today. I mean, it's just there's something about him that just feels like. I mean, we'll see if like. How much he's able to scale up his ceiling, but like it feels like his floor is kind of already there, I guess.
But he's one just like decent game away from the first 10 games this season not having one bad game. No bad games. Like he's been remarkably consistent too, which is rare for rookies, which has really stood out to me. And like when I watched him at Oregon, the reason I had him low 20s, in the 20s though for the draft is like he couldn't really create a lot of space from his defenders in college. So I was kind of like, oh, yeah, that's going to really kill him in the NBA. He doesn't need it. Like he doesn't need it.
And he creates great. He creates enough space to like drain shots. Like he's so good on the move with his jump shot that he can sort of just like get enough to score.
It's always scary with tough shot makers. You're like, oh man, that's really volatile. But if they keep making it, who cares, right? What does it matter if they can't create space if they can make the effing shot? And then the other side is his defense has been really special too. Like they stuck him on Jimmy Butler, no problem. Oh hey, we're playing the Nets. All right, Chris, rookie, go guard James Harden. All right, you did a good job there. Like
James Harden has not been great this year, but yes, I agree. It was still good.
He was against the Pacers.
That's true. He wasn't the Pacers, but in general,
right. He yarded Durant a few possessions as well. Like it's just he clearly has some weaknesses, but he has been remarkably better than I thought he'd be as a rookie. Yes, I agree.
Yeah, now the part that sort of is like, because I think of all the time, like when Warren returns, how does this shape out? I mean, like on the one hand, it's like now one of the centers is probably much more expendable than we ever thought. Or is Warren expendable in the way if he's not like very good or if he's not really ready? Like he's been out for a full year. Like, does he not get re-signed now because they don't necessarily need that? Like a lot of things start going through your brain. So when you think that Duarte probably needs to be starting the rest of the season, frankly.
I typically don't think like that far ahead of like, okay, when Warren returns, like, are we trading the whole team? But I will say the question has come up a lot on, in Pacerland of like, okay, when Warren comes back, who starts? Like, what are the roles change there? Because, and that's not like dramatic changes kind of thing. I'm willing to think about that. And I think I just, you know how high I am on Warren if you've listened to the show a lot, and you do too, Adam. I think I would still start Warren and try to see if Duarte thrives in that sixth man role. And then you're also getting him more reps. Ideally, I would understand starting him, though. I mean, keep giving him that chemistry with your core who's going to be here long term with him, right? Brogdon and him both have 4 guaranteed years on their deals. Sabonis has 3. That makes a lot of sense to me, too. So that might be across the bridge when you get their thing, and they'll probably have to ease back Warren anyway after a full year. But it's a fascinating question, and maybe, like you said, maybe it is benching a big. I don't know. We kind of have to get more info, like you said, get through 25 games, assess your team, but it's a fascinating question. He's been that good that we already have to think like that.
Yeah, I mean, then who are you closing with, even if you don't start him?
Right,
like that's
right.
I mean,
I don't care if I start him or not. He's a closer.
That's what I mean. Like even if he's the 6th man, which is fine, you still have to you got to close with him. He's just been that good, and I think there is having the 4, we'll call it the LeVert, Brogdon, Warren, Duarte. Is interesting. I mean, that's like a legitimate, like really, like tough, really score heavy, has enough defense to be like 1 through 4. And then I just don't know how you pick out the center. Like, do you go defense or do you go offense? And it's I don't know. It's just, we don't have to make, thank God, because it will be tough when if that does come to pass. But we don't know with Warren. We just don't know. I mean, who knows if he comes back at his level he was before? Like, there's a lot more ifs in that situation.
Do you have any other massive thoughts about the early season Pacers?
I was
Duarte's been the story for the whole season. So
yeah, I mean, I was looking at this there because I haven't really done a ton staring at like their B-ball ref page, because usually it's like the first, especially this mini game doesn't really matter. I mean, Sabonis has been actually probably a little more underwhelming than I thought. I thought he would come in and like kind of be on a tear or something, and maybe he'll get there eventually. And I don't know if some of that is the 2 center thing and like that, but like I don't think he's been the same player he was last year, but I thought he might make a little bit of a leap. But besides that, I don't think there's a lot else to really dive into. Duarte, and then they got to stay healthy, this team, frankly.
Yeah, Sabonis doesn't get used like last year, right? Like I talked about that earlier. He doesn't have those handoff elbow stuff going on as much.
He feels less engaged. I feel like he's less engaged, but he feels like the offense is less around him, I guess.
I agree. Yeah, he's still engaged, but I agree the offense is less around him. He still has opportunities to create. Don't get me wrong. Like he's still close to 5 assists per game as a big, and he's still shooting. Well, this is before this game, actually. The stats have not updated on B-ball ref for this one game, but he's still shooting over 60% from the field.
Oh, he's been fantastic inside. They're feeding him down low, and he's crushing.
Excellent. Yeah, clearly improved as a low post scorer. So yeah, his stats are down. I think that's just how he's used is different. I actually thought he might be used. Like in the Hornets game, he had the ball a ton. So I was like, oh, wow, he might be incredible this year.
Aren't his stats down, though? Aren't his stats the same as last year?
They're
just not
pretty much.
Yeah, he just made a jump, I guess. But maybe that's why it feels so weird, is that maybe it's just flat as a player for the first 9 games now.
Can we talk about the only new guy you haven't brought up, or we haven't really talked about today?
Oh, Craig.
What have you thought about Torrey Craig through 9? We'll say 10 just for the sake of rounding, but yeah, 9 games.
I like the fact, like I said, his size seems to come in handy a lot. I mean, that's something they just like I don't like. So McDermott is the same height and body type as him, but Craig definitely just throws around his body better than McDermott does, at least on the defensive end. To me, it's been good. I mean, I think I would be like, I thought he was definitely going to be like an outside the rotation guy. If I had to guess, I would have flipped him and O'Shea when the year started. So he's been kind of in that role and has done a decent job. But I think I see his limitations, but I like the use he's been in.
Yeah, so I was workshopping O'Shea thoughts with him today because O'Shea didn't even play against the Knicks.
Yeah.
Keelan Martin was over him. So I don't know what happened with O'Shea. He was playing a ton, but Craig had that insane game against the Knicks, the Nets. Excuse me. He was unbelievably good. And we saw where they played Toronto and he barely played. He didn't play till the fourth quarter where you saw his need, right? They were getting killed by Anunoby. They needed a big wing. And then Craig's been awesome since that Toronto game in Toronto. So I think my theory right now is I still like O'Shea a lot and think he should play, but Craig's ceiling is higher, whereas I think O'Shea might be a little more consistent because he's more of an offensive threat. But if Craig plays like he has since the Nets game, yeah, he should play every game. So his defense is really valuable, especially against your Julius Randles, your Anunobys, your Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant.
He's really the only guy that has, like, until they get Warren back, the perimeter size to guard like pretty much any 1 through 4. I mean, I guess he'd probably get burned by point guards, but like they just don't have a guy that has that kind of body type that can handle that. I mean, I think O'Shea maybe can, but Craig is clearly a more developed defensive player than O'Shea. So I mean, he's just kind of like a veteran guy that I think Carlisle will rely on because you kind of do that kind of thing, especially when you're a new coach and new roster and you're just trying just to win games, frankly, because you started off so bad. So I'm sure they'll rely on him. He definitely has not been the offensive player was in the preseason. So thank God he hasn't taken 12 shots in a game. I mean,
that's what I was going to add. Like he takes 3 threes a game and he makes 1 to 2. I'm completely fine with that.
Fine.
You can do that all you want. Yeah, that's great. And he hasn't been putting on the floor as much. Yeah, his offensive rebounding has been another really valuable skill for him. But yeah, I like how Craig's playing too, and it's weird to be encouraged by a 3-6 team, but they've been rounding into form.
This win today was big. I mean, I think it showed what the team can be like when most of it comes together. I mean, obviously, right, they're still out Warren, but I think it seems like this is going to be the roster for the next, let's call it 15 or 20 games. So hopefully we'll see a kind of a turnaround.
So Adam, do you know who is winning our predictions game at this point?
We are literally 10% in now? Not even.
It's very important to know.
Well, I had him 5-4, I'm sure. So you're probably winning then, right? Because they won more games.
Yes, I have gotten 6 right, and you've gotten 5 right at this stage.
Oh, we're neck and neck.
Very important updates. All right, you got anything else, Adam?
No, I'm excited. I feel like the last week have been sort of like me trying to like talk myself into the team being okay, and now these last 2 games it made me feel like okay, the team's okay.
Yes, I agree. Outside of the one, again, in Toronto loss, they've looked better. So, yeah, tomorrow it'll be me talking Portland and Kings. The game's over the weekend, and some other third segment. I'll come up with some interesting Pacers topics, so stay tuned for that. You can follow me at TEastNBA and Adam at Friedman5. The show at Locked On Pacers. Thank you guys a ton for listening, and we will see you tomorrow.